open space, the final frontier. These are the explorations of scientists, sociologists, and AI technologists at Maynooth University. Our mission: to create autonomous drones, air traffic flight management, and seek out new solutions for our civilization. To boldly go where no drone has gone before. Experienced knowledge set free at our open days, November 23rd and 24th.
Maynooth University. No bounds.
Welcome back into the Sportsmemo College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our next guest up, Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome into the pod. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Drew, how about yourself today?
I'm doing good, man. We got game numbers 341 down to 368, starting off today's portion of the podcast with a coupon code Teddy9. Teddy's been good in both college football and the NFL, and you can get his Friday night ESPN 2 winner right now at sportsmemo.com for just $9, more than a 50% discount using coupon code Teddy9. Teddy, coming off of a weekend in college football where you hit 3 dogs to win outright, Cal, Northwestern, and Boise, seeing it well. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I like the college card this week. I think there's some very interesting games to talk about, and there's certainly some good potential out there for, I'm in action tonight on Thursday. I'm in action tomorrow on Friday, and I'm going to be in action on Saturday. They have not released the card yet. That'll go out Friday morning, as always, by 9 a.m. Pacific time.
All right, Teddy, we got game number 341, 342, UMass at Georgia, 65.5 the total, seeing UGA laying 41 in Sanford Stadium. These handicaps are tough for me, Teddy. Do you ever get involved with them?
Not often. You have to find something, and there's a whole bunch of SEC versus bottom feeder matchups this week that aren't necessarily easy handicaps. I did some reading on this one, though. I was looking in the local papers, Georgia, but from what they're saying, Georgia is taking UMass very seriously. And that wasn't the coaching staff. It was multiple player quotes saying, we're prepped for this team. We're coming in. And remember, if it's 35-0 at the half and Georgia pulls out all their starters, their second stringers are capable of running this score up even further. The Minutemen, their football and their basketball teams are coming to Georgia. They got paid $1.5 million for it. I was, again, looking through some of the papers that were, UMass has an offense. They can score 33 points a game. Not against teams like Georgia, not even close. Boston College, they were badly outclassed. Lost that game 55 to 21. Now, the back door could be open here. BYU last week, they're outclassed. And BYU's not Georgia when it comes to size or speed. Maybe size, they can compete with Georgia, but speed, no way. But the back door would be open in theory for UMass here with an offense that can chuck the football around. I just don't know if their receivers can do anything, even against Georgia's backup. So the money's come on the dog, not my money. I don't like 40-point underdogs. If I'm playing these type of games, I'm much more inclined to be laying than taking the points.
Teddy, heading to the Sun Belt, we got Georgia Southern at Coastal Carolina. Looks like Georgia Southern laying 7 on the highway, 53.5 the total.
Yeah, Georgia Southern just got knocked out of the Sun Belt East race, and that's a problem. And this is an offense that all they do is run the football, and the last 2 weeks they haven't been able to run the football. So that's a problem as well. But they might be facing the perfect elixir for a team that can't run the football because, this Coastal Carolina squad, they won 5 games this season. I'll give them credit for that. But when you look at their numbers against the run, it's pretty ugly. They give it up like 6 yards per carry. Many teams have had success moving the football on the ground against Coastal Carolina. So, it's a Georgia Southern team that you don't know what the motivation is. Now, back-to-back losses. Now 2 road games close the season. That's not a bet-on spot for me when you're talking about a road favorite. No siree. But what hasn't worked the last couple of weeks has the potential to work against this Coastal Carolina defense. So it's not like you're getting any great value with a Coastal Carolina squad that, they're non-competitive when in defeat. In fact, they have yet to cover a point spread in defeat all season. When they win, they've covered every game. When they've lost, they fail to cover every game. That's something that I do start to pay attention to around in November. That's one of the things I'm looking for teams that win but don't cover and or cover but don't win. those stand out, and we haven't seen any of that from Coastal Carolina all season.
Teddy, 345, 346. We got Missouri, Tennessee, SEC East matchup here. Missouri laying 5.5 or 6 on the road, 56.5 the total in Knoxville.
Break up the Vols, man. Back-to-back wins. I'm sure the first one came against Charlotte, and of course they were laying 21 and only scored 14 points in that ball game. But last week against Kentucky, Tennessee did two things they had to do. First, they were able to shut down Benny Snell. It was a really strong defensive performance for the Vols, as good as I've seen them defensively at any point this season when playing quote-unquote a real team. And they were able to hit a bunch of big plays. It wasn't one of these games where the Vols were grinding out first downs. It was all chunk, chunk plays one after the next. And, of course, the sophomore QB, Garantano, what's he have, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions over the last 6 ball games. Missouri hasn't been covering numbers on the highway. Had to rally back last week. It's not a defense that I'm excited about laying points. Rally back against Vandy last week. They did have a nice win at Florida, but they also let a game at South Carolina get away. Obviously, the game at Purdue, even though they won, they didn't play particularly well in that contest. And, for as much as we like Drew Lock, if I'm playing here, I would look in a week where the SEC doesn't have a lot of marquee matchups. The Vols have certainly played a little bit better of late. They may be a value-laden team down the stretch over the last couple of weeks. But on the other hand, Tennessee in a shootout, no. That's not their role. If you like the Vols, I think there is some correlation with a play on the under here. I don't think Tennessee can hang if it's a high-scoring affair.
Yeah, what Jeremy Pruitt's doing there in Knoxville, it's not all bad things happening right now in that program, but we'll move down. Staying in the SEC, at least home field venue, Middle Tennessee State at Kentucky, 46.5 the total. With the Wildcats, looks like the market's projecting a bounce back here for Kentucky, Teddy. Open 13, now seeing mostly 16s across the board.
Sure, but again, you look at Kentucky this year laying points, all right? They're laying 17 against Central Michigan, don't cover there. They're laying 41 against Murray State, don't cover there. They're laying 10 to Vandy, don't cover there. They're laying 5 to Tennessee last week on the road. They lose that game outright. They've been great dogs. They beat Florida as a dog, and Mississippi State as a dog, and hung out at A&M as a dog, and beat Missouri as a dog. Not as chalk, and this is not new or different for Mark Stoops. He's failed to cover his last 10 tries as home chalk. Coming to the season, Kentucky, he had the worst point spread record of any head coach in football, and now they're coming off a bad loss to Georgia, followed by an even worse loss to Tennessee. And here's Middle Tennessee State. Do they give a crap about this game? I'm not convinced that they do. Might not matter if they hand the ball off to Snell 40 times and he just, runs through Middle Tennessee State. That is possible. But, you talk about a senior QB who's been around the block, not just in Murfreesboro. And the Blue Raiders certainly have that in Stockstill. But they tried to step up in class twice this year against SEC foes, I should say. They went to Vandy and got annihilated, and they went to Georgia and got annihilated, 35-7 and 49-7. The recent track record for the Blue Raiders is not good in this step up in class role.
Teddy, you bring up Benny Snell maybe running over MTSU and also Stockstill kind of manning the ship on offense. Then I look at the total and I see 46.5. Does that seem low to you?
Well, what's Kentucky's MO? Kentucky's MO is running the football and playing defense. What's Mississippi State? What's Middle Tennessee State's MO? Their MO is, hey, we got a senior quarterback, but we haven't been able to move the football against the better defenses that we faced. No, that total doesn't seem too low. I'm not excited about playing any Kentucky game over the total. They're an under or pass type of total for me, and at this number, it's not one that really stood out to me at all.
All right, fair enough, Teddy. We got Ohio State at Maryland. Looks like 14.5. The Buckeyes are laying now on the road, and 57.5 now Chris is posting as the total. Teddy, we've talked about it before. If you can stop Maryland, their rushing attack, you can beat Maryland. I think Ohio State can. You think this number looks short?
I'm not, it really is a fascinating handicap because, of course, Ohio State, we're not going to call it it's a sandwich, They won at Michigan State last week, right? Big game. Here they're big chalk against a team that hasn't beaten them, and then next week, obviously, at home against the Wolverines. So it has that look-ahead feel to it for Ohio State. It has that win and go home feel to it. Of course, last year in a comparable spot against Illinois, they won the game 52-14. Of course, they were laying 41 and did not cover the point spread. And Ohio State's got some key injuries here. Baron Browning, the stud linebacker, he's out on Saturday. Multiple injuries in the secondary. Isaiah Pryor's a question. And it's not like Ohio State doesn't have quality depth. They do. But when you're talking about guys that are going to be drafted, in the NFL next spring, and they're not playing here against a team that plays, it's a funky style for Maryland on offense. Matt Canada, he's impressed me more. I know he didn't get the job done at LSU, but he's impressed me more than once with his ability to design plays and design an offense against some of the better defenses. But if the Terps' running game doesn't work, if they can't generate chunk plays through misdirection, if Iowa State's team speed is too great, then Maryland has no chance. Kasim Hill's out. You have issues to do with the QB, and Maryland can't throw the football at all. And we know what this Ohio State offense can do with a Heisman contender at QB. So I'm not laying it with Ohio State. If I had to play it, I would look at the Terps plus. I think it might be a tricky game for Ohio State, but this is going to stay in the lean category. I'm not getting the window betting on Maryland in this ballgame.
Teddy, heading to the ACC, NC State, Louisville. Louisville, Petrino's shown the door, so we're finding change anyway, which a lot of times in sports betting can mean value, or at least potential value. 16.5 NC State laying on the road, 63.5 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville's played like 3 touchdowns worse than their talent level this year, maybe more than that. Mm-hmm. So you say, all right, Petrino's gone, and now you have an interim head coach, Lorenzo Ward. Reading some of the comments, it's a lost season. And sometimes you're like, all right, here comes the intern. They got rid of Petrino. Things are going to turn around. I haven't gotten that sense for Louisville. And when I could be wrong. Again, I'm not saying it can happen. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I could be wrong. I'm not. It's not a. I'm saying that there's no chance Louisville's got. There's any life for this team. But I didn't get that sense from the quotes. And, of course, they covered 1 point spread all year. There's a ton of theoretical value on Louisville. Their last 3 losses, 56-35 against Wake Forest at home, 77-16 at Clemson in the last timeout, the 54-23 loss at Syracuse. They got two games left, both at home against teams that don't severely outclass them talent-wise. But if you've been in Louisville, it's all on a leap of faith. NC State, the loss last week to Wake is 18.5-point chalk on the heels of the loss to Syracuse, on the heels of the loss to Clemson. Now it's 3 losses in the last 4 games. Only 1 point spread cover since September for NC State. They've quite simply been an overvalued commodity, and their season is spoiled and ruined. So I'm not sure that they bring what you want to the table as 16.5, 17-point chalk, but it's been nothing but road favorite money. The markets, the books are having a very hard time attracting any Louisville money at this stage, and you can understand why. They've been a pretty atrocious football team.
Yeah, Teddy, this is a fascinating handicap, and especially coming towards the end of the college football season as we're going to start seeing coaching changes. And it's one thing I remember a lot from your good friend Dave Malinsky, may rest in peace, but this was one thing that I do remember him writing a lot about and being really into, as far as, does the new coach have the interim tag? Is he actually getting a look for next season being the head coach? So when guys are they really fighting to kind of be the starter the following year as well, and that mattering? Do you get that sense here with Louisville?
Not at all. Louisville will have a coaching search. And the interim is not likely. I don't think anyone from Petrino's staff is going to survive. There will be a bloodletting in Louisville this coming off season.
Okay. Hey, going to the 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific kick on ABC, Cincinnati versus UCF, 5.5 the total. Looks like UCF laying 7 at home in the biggest game Orlando has seen in quite some time. How would you look to bet Cincy versus UCF, Teddy?
So my initial reaction is, what the? Cincy's getting 7.5? You know, I'm all ears with Cincy getting 7.5. And then you start really looking at it. And, of course, the 7.5s are down to 7 now. Those mostly bought up. And strength versus strength. You know, the Bearcats defense ranked number 6 in the country. The UCF offense ranked number 3 in the country. Normally, we like the defensive teams in these matchups. Luke Fickell, certainly, a defensive mind at Ohio State as the coordinator there, and has taken that mentality to Cincinnati, and taking a team that was going nowhere, a garbage team, 4-8, and turned them into this 9-win juggernaut. But you remember a couple weeks ago, College Game Day came to Pullman, Washington.
Yes,
where they never go. And you say, how much was the home field worth in that game? It was worth a lot more than 3 points. That extra energy, that extra attitude, that extra whatever. Here's UCF. This team's won, what do you say, 22 in a row now?
It's about that, yeah.
And they haven't gotten the hype, and they haven't gotten the love, and they're ranked number 11 in the national championship rankings and all of that stuff. This is their spotlight game. Josh Heupel's coached up this squad really well in the departure
of Scott Frost, yeah.
Of Scott Frost last season. And Mackenzie Milton is a stud. Cincinnati's not built for shootouts, okay? This is a team that lives and dies on their defense. And you watch the quarterback play, it's pedestrian. It's ham and egger kind of stuff. They're able to run the football. It's not the dynamic offense. They can't trade points with UCF. If UCF's offense gets going, Cincy's in big trouble in this game, and it may well go over the total as a result. If the Bearcats are going to hang, Cincy and under correlate. I think there's absolute truth to that. But, again, my first reaction was, boy, that's a lot of points. And the other thing that you do is you start grading out the personnel. And there's another game we're going to talk about where grading out the personnel becomes problematic. You look at Cincy, wow, what a season. And then you start to argue, who's got NFL talent? Where's the side? Where's the speed? Edges at every position for Central Florida. I give Fickell credit for putting together a heck of a season with a mediocre roster, but that initial lean towards Cincy has faded away rather quickly. When you start to do some work in the game, it's UCF or pass for this better.
Yeah, I read it the same exact way, Teddy. I was looking to bet Cincy in this one. Just kind of the hype train is getting a little bit closer to UCF, but when you break it down, man, you can just see Mackenzie Milton and company putting up big numbers. So I view it exactly the same as you. We got 355, 356, Liberty at Auburn, 62 the total. Auburn laying 4 touchdowns in Jordan Hare.
I mean, you got any interest in laying this price with Auburn?
No. Because
I don't. Auburn, this is not their role. They've been bad double-digit chalk all this 1-4 ATS when laying doubles this season. Over the long term, under Malzahn, this team's been miserable as home chalk. What do I got? 25 times they've been double-digit chalk in the Malzahn era. They've covered 6-point spreads. All right, a couple pushes, but 6 out of 25 in the ratio I'm looking for. So you want the dog here? I mean, you can certainly make Liberty's pretty rough, but their offense can move. I mean, that's the one thing about Liberty. They have been able to put up points against comparable competition, even against Virginia. They move the football a fair bit, but at Virginia, then at Auburn, you worry about whether Liberty can bring the same level of energy this week. And if things get ugly, they might get really ugly. And of course, because of Auburn's failures in this role so often, you're not laying an extreme price. Tigers win by 4 touchdowns. You shop around, you can cash your bet, but not a game I'm going to get involved with. Lean over if I do if there's anything.
Teddy, have you done any reading on Stidham and Malzahn and that whole relationship they have, the quarterback and head coach at Auburn?
What do you got? Sure.
I've noticed some things, and it's going a little downhill. I read an article where they were asking Malzahn, do you think Stidham's going to go to the NFL? And it was just kind of like, yeah, I think he will, and he probably should. And Stidham was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to look into it. And it just seems like, Malzahn is totally fine with him going. It was just kind of weird because, he's a talented quarterback, but he's not the right profile for this offense. So I think kind of Malzahn's almost not pushing him out the door, but totally fine with him going to the NFL and looking elsewhere for next year's starting quarterback.
I certainly haven't gotten the sense that you have a QB and a head coach that have been on the exact same page all season. This isn't like, Will Grier and Dana Holgorsen right now. And Auburn's 3-4 in SEC play, and they're a 6-win team. This is not a great Tigers team. And certainly some of that is Stidham's fault. Now, whether it's the fact that Malzahn hasn't been able to coach him up or hasn't been able to get him to buy in, may well be a piece of that equation. But the bottom line for Auburn this season, when you look at that, 3-4 record in conference play, a lot of it's the quarterback not getting the job done.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Malzahn's taken a lot of heat, but I was watching the Georgia game after. He was shaking hands, smiling, joking, laughing after they just got beat, by 3 touchdowns. It's just not the type of team I'm looking to bet on right now, especially this game going into Alabama. I'd look for them to get their doors blown off. Maybe the bowl game if a lot changes, but that's a long way away. So my advice is to stay away from the Auburn Tigers, but let's move on down the line here. Conference USA matchup, FIU at Charlotte. The 49ers at home catching 5.5, 47 the total.
Break up FIU, man. They're playing really good ball right now. They won, 5 of their last 6 overall. They're in position to, they're going to a bowl game, but they're in position to clinch in the big Conference USA East title in this ballgame. Certainly something to play for Florida International Squad. Of course, we always forget it's Butch Davis we're talking about. The guy can coach. He breaks rules, but the guy can flat out coach. Everywhere he's been, he's had success, and places that haven't had anywhere near the level of success since he's left. So you can count me as a Butch Davis fan from a betting perspective, coming off another win and cover against Texas San Antonio last week. Charlotte, and the price here is very reasonable to get involved with FIU. Yeah, the pressure ratchets up a little bit, but it's not like Charlotte's a good team. They have they do have a couple of. They have played well at home. Old Dominion win and cover, Western Kentucky win and cover, Southern Miss win and cover in their last 3 tries. So we'll give them credit for that. But I mean, there's class in this in this matchup. FIU's the class. I don't know that Charlotte is going to be capable of moving the football on the FIU defense, which has been impressive. And Charlotte has no passing game whatsoever. So when they fall behind, that's likely to be a problem.
Guys, remember the coupon code TEDDY9. That's Teddy's name, TEDDY, number 9 for his Friday night winner for just $9 on sportsmemo.com. We got New Mexico State at BYU. Teddy, 55.5, 56 the total. Looks like BYU, the Cougars, laying 24 in Provo.
Yeah, I'm still mad at BYU for losing at home to Troy? Still mad about that game. Haven't forgotten it. Won't forget it. No, Northern Illinois. It was Northern Illinois they lost. Sorry, Troy and Northern Illinois, kind of the same team.
I was on that game too. They lost 7-6, right?
Yeah. And then they've back-to-back covers since that loss, and they've won. They've covered 3 of their last 4. The one at UMass last week. We saw them go and make the QB change, and that's been a positive sign. Mango wasn't connecting, but it's not a team that has big play weapons. BYU doesn't get quick strike touchdowns. And look, I'm not making any case for New Mexico State. You don't make money in college football betting on the very worst teams, and especially you don't make money in college football betting on the very worst teams in meaningless road games late in the season. And New Mexico State, what are they? Again, you don't want to worry too much about the aggregate stats, but the aggregate stats are brutal. 119th in rushing, 112th in pass efficiency, and 126th in scoring defense. That's New Mexico State. So it explains the point spread. But I don't want a BYU squad in this point spread range because they don't get the cheap scores. Every drive they have, they got to put it, march it down the field and into the end zone. That worries me even against New Mexico State.
That was funny. You're like, New Mexico, 120, 124, 119. Yeah, that's not a team I'm looking
Well, yeah, they can't run, they can't pass, and they can't stop anyone. That's a bad trio,
Yeah. Oh, man. New Mexico State, maybe better days ahead. But we'll move down to Air Force at Wyoming. 43 the total. This one, closely lined game, 2.5 pretty much across the board. That's Wyoming laying it at home.
Yeah, I'm tempted by Wyoming in this ballgame. Definitely tempted by Wyoming in this ballgame. We've seen consistently that Craig's Bowls teams have been able to handle the Air Force option, and Wyoming beat them 28-14 last year, and they've covered all of 4 meetings against Air Force since Craig Bowl came to town, and the Air Force offense really hasn't worked all that well in any of those ball games. They just scored 26 2 years back at Wyoming, but the Cowboys hung 35 in that contest. Now it's an Air Force team that has been mediocre at best. And the one thing that this squad can't do, Wyoming doesn't have a strong passing game, but you talk about Air Force against the pass, this team cannot stop anyone from throwing the football. And we've seen that over and over and over again. Now, Wyoming doesn't throw the football real well, which is the problem here. But that defense can be expected to give the Falcons some trouble. They're coming off a bye. They've had extra time to prepare. And they're a 4-win team right now. They have New Mexico next week who they can beat. This is their bowl eligibility game in theory. Bowl's been pretty good at coaching them up for these type of contests. So it'd be Wyoming or pass for me, even though their biggest strength, running the football, doesn't match up well against Air Force's biggest defensive weakness, which is against the pass.
Teddy, we got Utah at Colorado, talking about a team that finding change. Utah's, one of their best players, their quarterback, Tyler Huntley, out for the season. They're still laying 7 on the road in Boulder, 48 the total.
Well, it's more than Huntley. It was Moss as well. Zach Moss is out for the season. That's a huge, 1,100 yards.
So, their 2 best players are gone.
Yeah, 6 yards a carry, almost 12 touchdowns. The guy, Zach Moss was the heart and soul of that team in a real way. And all of a sudden he's hurt. And what happens? No problem. The backup quarterback, Shelley, throws for 288 last week. The backup running back comes in, what's his name? Shine, 174 yards rushing against Oregon. And they had to rally, they had a lead and they let it get away and they had to rally from behind and it was an impressive win for Utah a week ago. And Colorado right now, it's the markets are having a hard time attracting Buffs money. It's now 5 straight. Remember, this team started 5-0, and they were nationally ranked when they went to USC. And I bet against them that game. I should have bet them every game since. They've only covered 1 of those last 5. The defense has fallen apart. The offense, held to just a single touchdown last week. Even with Chenault back, it didn't make a big difference. McIntyre's under fire right now. The Buffs are something of a dumpster fire, and the markets are telling us that pretty clearly with this point spread. So there's no bargains here on Utah. Certainly not again. You're getting a QB making a difficult road start here against a hungry and desperate team. But, I don't know that Colorado's going to – there's no flip. There's no switch for McIntyre to flip on this squad right now. He's already flipped a bunch of switches, and none of them have worked. That definitely concerns me for Colorado, although Whittingham very happy to win this game by a touchdown and go home. And obviously laying a touchdown here, they're going to have to win by more than that in order to cover the number. Last time here, Colorado 27-22. Last year, Utah got their revenge with a 31-7 win at home, a defense that shut down Steven Montez and that Buffs offense.
Guys, we got 2 games left in this segment with Teddy. Remember the coupon code Teddy9, $9 for his his Friday night action on sportsmemo.com. That coupon code is Teddy9. Also, check out his all-access packages, his longer-term service packages. He's 70% NFL sides, 64% NFL year-to-date, 58% in college football. So some impressive numbers here on the gridiron for Teddy Covers. A great choice at sportsmemo.com. 365-366 Utah State at Colorado State. Teddy, looks like Utah State laying 4 touchdowns, 68 the total.
You want the dog?
No, I want
Nobody wants the dog.
I want Utah State, man.
Utah State is just throttling teams. If you haven't watched Jordan Love play, watch him. He's a lot of fun. And we saw that right from the – remember what Utah State did to Sparty week 1 in East Lansing, where they were moving the ball up and down the field? You're like, wow, what's wrong with Michigan State? No. Michigan State defense is fine. It's Utah State. Since that game, 60, 73, 42, 45, 59. They had the 24-point game at Wyoming. I just talked about how good Wyoming's defense is. Last 3 weeks, 61, 56, 62. You can't stop this offense, flat out. They are putting up points in bunches against everybody and flying over the total every week. And Colorado State, the game last week in Nevada, it's been a rough run. They won 2 at the start of Mountain West play. They had that bad first quarter at Boise where they turned the ball over a bunch and down 28-0 early. And since that time, no show at home against Wyoming. Absolute no show last week at Nevada. That game was, as ugly as it gets. Lots of quit in Colorado. And it's been a bad season. The coach was sick. The quarterback didn't work out. All kinds of issues for the Rams, but very, very difficult for me to get to the window betting Colorado State right now. I've had my fun with that squad, and I'm do I want to lay 28 with Utah State on the highway? I'd rather do it if I had to make a bet. That's the way I'd play it. That's how bad the Rams are right now.
Teddy, big one to end it here. Syracuse at Notre Dame. This one in Yankee Stadium, 65.5 the total. Looks like the Irish laying 10 in New York.
Sure. So earlier in the pod, I was talking about the Cincinnati UCF game. And I'm like, you grade out the personnel, and maybe this point spread should be a little bit higher, even though Cincy's got a 9-1 record. That's the case with Syracuse. I'm a big Orange have made me money all year, and if I'm playing this game, I'm only taking Syracuse. I'm not going to lay with Notre Dame, but I worry. And of course, we've seen Syracuse. They went on the road and hung tough with Clemson at Clemson. It was a game that Lawrence got hurt, but they were impressive in that contest against a quality foe in a hostile environment, even though they lost. In fact, they were a play away from winning that game, and of course they had Pitt on the ropes and lost that game in OT. That's their only 2 losses. So Syracuse is 2 plays away from being 10-0, essentially. Or a couple of breaks, and they'd be a different team. But then you start actually grading. Syracuse doesn't have NFL talent. I don't know anyone on that team that's going to be drafted. So you start looking at the size and the speed and the measurables, and Notre Dame has edges everywhere. Both sides of the field. And of course, the Fighting Irish, they don't have the statistical profile of some of the best teams in college football. They don't have like the Michigan's defense or Alabama's offense, or they haven't put up ridiculous numbers week after week after week, which means that their betting bandwagon isn't what it could be when you're talking about teams, playing at this level. Only one point spread cover. I guess the Northwestern game bounced around the number. I got to grade it as a push in my numbers. But, they haven't been, covering these bigger numbers against Pitt or against Navy. Navy was kind of a push, too. I danced right around the number. Last week finally got it done in Florida State, but the Seminoles have flat out quit. That's no shock there. So the Irish don't have a betting bandwagon. They don't have a statistical profile that makes anyone stand up and go, wow. And all the pressure's on Notre Dame. It's certainly a concern here for an undefeated team at this stage of the campaign. But if Notre Dame brings their A game and Syracuse brings their A game, Notre Dame probably covers a number, and that is something that definitely concerns me for the Syracuse side. Although, like I said, 10.5, that's a lot of points for an Orange team that's in every game week after week. But personnel-wise, I do have my concerns. Notre Dame's a lot faster than Syracuse is.
Great stuff, Teddy. Guys, remember the coupon code Teddy9 at checkout for his Friday night action on sportsmemo.com, and we'll be right back with our next guest on the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast.